Hi, it's Andrea. I'm coming today with a couple of videos, hopefully. My goal is to make maybe 2 or 3 videos. I was going to do another hot process soap video and a cold process video, and then this video where I am answering a couple of questions that I have received from people that have watched some of my previous videos. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone who has looked at my video, who has commented. I want to say welcome to all my new subscribers, and just thank you. Thank you for watching my videos, and thank you for taking the time to comment. I did receive a couple of questions, and these are from a YouTuber, X Flossie. Her first question is there a benefit between hot process over cold process, or is it just personal preference? I think it's both. It's a mixture of both. It is personal preference. As far as the main benefit between hot process over cold process is hot process could be used immediately, whereas cold process needs 4 weeks or sometimes even longer to sit and cure. So but then there's also cold process, oven process, where you kind of get the best of both worlds, where you can make your soap the cold process way, but then after you make it, you put it in an oven that's 170 degrees for about an hour, and then you turn your oven off and you leave the soap in the oven until the next morning. And when you take it out and cut it, it should be ready to use. My hot process soap, I normally let it sit for a week at minimum, sometimes even longer than that, before using it. I do that mainly so that any water that hasn't evaporated can be drawn out the soap, and then the soap will get harder. I find that if I use a soap too soon, even a hot process soap, it gets used faster. Like it's softer, so it doesn't last as long as, say, if I let it sit for at least a week. So that's just what I do. So that's the main difference between hot process and cold process. Now, of course, hot process, the way I make it in a crock pot, you're very limited as far as if you want to do anything very creative as far as swirling and things like that, because you can swirl, but it's different. And of course, the texture of the soap is much different. The hot process versus the very kind of creamy and soft look that you get from a cold process soap. So I think that is a personal preference. If someone likes the more smoother texture, they may be more, they will lean more towards the cold process. Where if someone is okay with maybe a kind of more textured look in the soap, they will be okay with making the hot process the way that I make it in a crock pot. Okay, so her second question is Flashpoint. Does that mean that's the highest temp the oil can stand before it goes off? Yes, basically that's what that is. Flashpoint is if you add the fragrance oil to, let's say, your cold process soap, and the temperature is over, let's say the Flashpoint is 165, and you soap at high temperatures, you will notice that the fragrance oil, the fragrance will basically dissipate. It'll evaporate. Same thing with hot process. Especially, I think this is more fitting for people that do hot process, because when you do cold process, most people soap at about, some people soap at room temperature, where they just let their stuff sit out until it gets room temperature, then they mix it. They're really not going to have a problem with that. Or most people, if you soap at a temperature, I would say most people soap somewhere between 85 degrees to maybe 115 degrees Fahrenheit. So, and most flash points are above that. So you're not really going to have a problem with that. But like in my case, when I'm making hot process in a crock pot, once the soap has cooked out, the temperature will be sometimes upwards of 200 degrees. Most, some fragrance oils have a flash point over 200 degrees, but most of them are less than that. So if I were to add the fragrance oil, then I wouldn't smell it. It would just, it would evaporate, it would dissipate, and it would be gone because the flash point is lower than the temperature of my soap. So that's why I let it sit for a little while so that the temperature can lower. There's also things you can do to lower the temperature. If you want to add your super fat oils after the soap has cooked, that will help to lower the temperature. I'm going to make oatmeal milk and honey soap where I put honey into the crock pot after the soap has cooked. That helps to bring down the temperature. So there's a couple things that you can do to help bring down the temperature a little faster so that your soap doesn't sit too long and start to get dry. Okay. What is a Zap Test? A Zap Test is basically when you, after the soap has cooked, you will take a little bit of the soap out of the pot, let it cool, and then put it to your tongue. Now, if it is cooked, you will not have anything happen. You'll just taste soap. If it still has any lye in the mixture, if the lye has not totally cooked out, you will get a zap. A lot of people say that the zap is equivalent to like a 9-volt battery. Now personally, I've never been zapped by a 9-volt battery, but I have been zapped by soap, and let me tell you, it felt like more than 9 volts to me. I don't think that's a mistake that I will ever make twice. So basically say if that happens, if you get a zap, you let the soap cook for 10 more minutes and then you test it again. But that's the Zap Test. Okay, so the last question she has, I kind of answered already. She says, how do I cure my soap after it's cut? Do I set it and leave it in a dark room? I don't leave it in a dark room. I cut it. I have my soap in various places throughout my house on just regular shelves. The freestanding shelves that I normally buy mine at maybe a Target or a Kmart in my local area. And I just put like a wax paper on the shelf, and then I put the soap on it, and I give it a little bit of space between every bar so that air can circulate, and then I just leave it for however many weeks. If if it's cold process, I leave it for at least 4, sometimes as many as 6 weeks, and if it is hot process, like I said, I leave it for about a week or maybe 2 before I use it or list it onto my website. So and then I had one other lady who actually sent me an email, and she asked me a couple of questions, so I want to answer those too. She said, okay, her first question was, if I did cold process, the answer is yes, and I will be doing a video regarding cold process. And she said, how do I formulate my recipes? And okay, she wanted to know if I could do a video on that at some point. Sure, I can do a video about how I formulate my recipes. Basically, when I first started making soap, I took a book. I'll show the book when I do the video. And I took a very basic recipe that a lot of soapers use. It's kind of like 33% olive oil, 33% palm oil, 33% coconut oil, and 1% castor. And that's what I used. And that's basically the only recipe I used for maybe the first 2 months that I was making soap. I made that over and over and over and over again until I got comfortable with the soap making process. And then I started to branch out and try different kinds of oils. But basically what I did after that point was I took that basic recipe and I just kind of did different variations of it. I know some people use, you use the kind of oils or butters and things that you want to use. So let's say if you wanted to use shea butter or you want to use rice bran oil or anything like that, I go to a lye calculator. I happen to use SoapCalc. I believe it's soapcalc.net. And I just play with the numbers. I mean, I think that soap making and soap recipes are always changing and always evolving. I think that that's why when people ask other people for their recipes, some people might get a little hinty because they feel like, they've done a lot of work in trying to perfect their recipe, so they don't want to give their recipe away. And I can understand that. So, but it's so easy, really, to formulate a recipe of your own. And I mean, no one here is reinventing the wheel. We're all using the same oils. We're all using, lye and water, and we're all mixing it together to get soap. It's just the different percentages that people may be using, and different, some people may use shea butter, some people might not. Some people might use, rice bran oil or canola oil, or, some people use tallow, some people don't use tallow, some people, so it's really formulating the recipe basically starts with figuring out what ingredients you want to use. And that may come from what ingredients you can find locally. Initially, when I first started, it was really, really difficult for me to find any coconut oil or palm oil locally. I had to order. And so, some people, and when they're first starting out, they don't want to have that additional expense. So they may want to maybe use things that they can just find in their local supermarket, like maybe the shortening and olive oil and maybe a canola oil. So if you wanted to do that, you would take those oils, plug the percentages into the lye calculator, and it will figure out, your percentages for you, and your lye percentages basically. So I hope that answers your question. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to send them to me. I enjoyed getting the questions, and I really feel honored that people come to me and ask me for my advice and my information. So keep them coming, okay? And I'll have a couple more videos coming too soon. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.